NASA's Artemis 1 mission is poised to take a key step toward returning humans to the Moon after a half-century hiatus. The mission, scheduled to launch on Monday, the 29th of August 2022. Artemis 1 is touted to be the most powerful rocket engine ever flown to space, even more powerful than Apollo's Saturn V system that took astronauts to the Moon in the 1960s and 70s. The spacecraft is scheduled to travel to the Moon, deploy some small satellites and then settle into orbit. NASA aims to practice operating the spacecraft, test the conditions crews will experience on and around the Moon, and assure everyone that the spacecraft and any occupants can safely return to Earth. Artemis 1 is a first step toward Artemis 3, which is going to result in the first human missions to the Moon in the 21st century and the first since 1972. Artemis 1 is an uncrewed test flight. Artemis 2, which is scheduled to launch a few years after that, will have astronauts on board. It, too, will be an orbital mission, very much like Apollo 8, which circled the Moon and came back home. The astronauts will spend a longer time orbiting the Moon and will test everything with a human crew. Through this mission, NASA is aiming to land first woman on the lunar surface, as early as 2025. The last humans to walk on the Moon were the two-man descent team of Apollo 17 in 1972, following in the footsteps of 10 other astronauts during 5 earlier missions beginning with Apollo 11 in 1969. The Artemis program is driven by a number of different goals. It includes resource utilization, which means using resources at hand like water, ice and lunar soil to produce food, fuel and building materials. The program is also helping to establish a lunar and space economy, starting with entrepreneurs, because SpaceX is very much part of this first mission to the surface of the Moon. NASA doesn't own the Starship but is buying seats to allow astronauts to go to the surface. SpaceX will then use the Starship for other purposes, to transport other payloads, private astronauts and astronauts from other countries.